I'm Robin with Decoding Dyslexia, Idaho, and we have Karyn Kilpatrick-Snell with us tonight. So thankful to have her. I got the opportunity to meet Karyn several years ago, and I'm so thankful for her time and all that she does in the community for dyslexia. Let me just do a quick introduction. So Karyn is a proud mother of two wonderful sons who happen to be dyslexic. And she wanted more for the misunderstood and often forgotten student, the dyslexic. In 2014, Karyn founded the Coopalo Learning Center in Boise, Idaho. She focuses on remediating students with learning differences such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and also is an advocate for students with learning differences in our public and private schools. She started her career nearly 20 years ago and has been a passionate learner since, has had extensive training in the OG philosophy and programs to include Ames Institute for Learning and Research, the Wilson Reading System, Linda Mood Bell, Letters, Barton Reading and Spelling. She holds a structured literacy classroom teaching certificate from the Center of Effective Reading Instruction. Truly, I think that Karyn might be our most well-rounded dyslexic specialist in the state of Idaho. She's received countless training and has her own personal story, having had two sons with dyslexia. So thank you, Karyn, for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome. I was going to say, as my dad says, I'm the most overeducated, underpaid person in the entire family. And it's true, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And I'm certainly, there's all research, believe it or not, keeps coming out. New things keep coming out. And I see different trainings going on, and I just leap at them. So I'm hoping that I could share some of what I've learned. And are you guys ready to get started?
We're ready. Yes, we're ready.
Let's see if I can do this right. Rose was helping me.
She's the girl to do that.
Let me get our pictures out of the way, and we're gonna go to the presenting mode. Okay, no, that doesn't work. Sorry, everybody. We've got to go to the right screen. Now we're gonna go to the presenting mode. Okay, I promise this is not a margarita in here. I'm just not very technical, just not very good at Google Slides. All right, so today we're doing the foundational skills necessary for decoding words, really little words and big words. There's different skills that they need, that students need. And so I did something kind of cool. See if it works. So what we're doing here is these are QR codes. So get your phones ready. And what you do, if you want more information, I'm sure everybody knows this, you just hold up your phone in picture mode, you place your phone on the QR code, you hit, and it goes straight to the resource that we're going to be talking about. So this is just kind of a sample here that does go to my website, just because I thought it would be fun to have you guys practice. Later in the presentation, there's going to be other resources. What I do when I go to conferences, especially webinars that are intimate like this, and we have the QR codes, is I just keep popping it up on my phone, and then it saves it in your history in Safari or in Google Chrome. So that way you can go back and pull up the resource. All right, so today's topics, we are going to be talking about phonological awareness, Erie's phases, decoding, encoding, syllable types, and syllable division. And you would not believe, I believe the International Dyslexia Association has been researching dyslexia for 70+ years, and there are still arguments over how we are supposed to introduce syllables, decoding, encoding to our students. So what I've done is I've compiled my training, and this is what I'm going to be teaching you today is what we use at Coopalo Learning Center. So I'm not going to go too deep into this. Can you guys see your pictures? Do I have to keep moving them around?
No, it looks great.
Okay, great. So I'm not going to go too deep into the phonemic and phonological awareness, because I know that my colleague Kristen Lewis has given a couple of presentations on it, and she really did dig down deep. And so what I'm going to be talking about when we're talking about phonological awareness and phonemic awareness is how important it is to move the students through it, so that then they need those skills necessary before we teach them decoding, or in conjunction with decoding. So when we're talking about students with dyslexia or students who are struggling in their reading, I'm only talking about word recognition. So a lot of students who are struggling, they've got the background knowledge, they've got the language comprehension, they have terrific vocabulary. And so right here, this is the only thing that we're focusing in on at Coopalo Learning Center, and it's usually this phonological awareness is where we see a big deficit with our struggling readers and our students who have been diagnosed with dyslexia. One of the reasons that I love this slide so much, it's the Scarborough's reading rope, is that it's been around forever and everybody keeps using it because it is so detailed, and it just tells you, you have to have these individual strings strong for them to be able to become a skilled reader. And so today we're focusing in on this right here, the word recognition, phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. So like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into this just because I know Kristen Lewis did, but this is one of my favorite slides or images that talk about phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. One of the big things is the difference. We keep hearing, teachers hear it, teachers say it, researchers say it, and parents hear it and parents say it, but really, what's the difference between phonological awareness and phonemic awareness? And that's why I like this slide so much, is because what it does is it shows us right here, these skills, words into syllables, rhymes, and alliteration, and those are all without letters because this is phonological awareness. So this is, we do not have graphemes. That's all of this is considered phonological awareness, but the phonemic awareness starts here with the onset, rhyme, segmentation, segmenting initial and final sounds, blends sounds into words, and segments words into sounds. What research has found that these skills right here are foundational, critical skills for early literacy success. And it makes sense, right? Because when we do add graphemes, when we do add the letter A or the letter B and the E and the T, the children have to be able to blend those sounds into words. And so that's why we have to make this super, super, super strong in phonemic awareness without adding the letters, with just it being the sounds, before we add those graphemes. So moving on, because I'm not diving deep, because I know that Kristen already has in past webinars, I just wanted to bring up these great quotes. David Kilpatrick is phenomenal, no relation to me. I wish there was, but there's not. They've really come out in the last several years, probably even before that, that phonemic awareness is critical for success in reading. And we have found that if we do not attack the phonemic awareness, and we do not give those students that opportunity to be able to manipulate those sounds, play with those sounds, and get a strong understanding of phonemic awareness, then we're going to have, no doubt, we will have a poor reader later on in 3rd and 4th grade. The next slide, of course, is Louisa Moats. She again is also talking about this. The reason why I like this slide and this quote is because she talks about our students with reading problems. So it's not just the younger kids. It's if I get a 4th grader in my center and he is having trouble reading, I immediately think I have to check his phonemic awareness. And so QR code, everybody. Okay, so if you're gonna wanna do this, is you just take your camera, point it at the QR code. It's gonna go right on your screen, and then you could save it. This is when I get a student in to Coopalo Learning Center who is a struggling reader, doesn't matter what grade he's in or she is in, we always assess their phonological awareness. And we do that by using the past. and that is Dr. David Kilpatrick's assessment that he created. I like it. It's research-based. It provides 4 different separate forms for progress monitoring. All students in K through 3rd, it creates different lessons plans for teachers. That is really, really important. Plus, struggling students 4th grade and higher are the ones that he really focuses on. So if we're going to look at, let me move back. Let me go back to, let me catch up. I'm on a different screen for my notes. I want to make sure I said everything. Oh, I think I did. Okay, moving on. That's one thing that I do for phonemic awareness. The next thing that I do is I use, once I have a student and I've understood, oh, we've got a problem. And actually, let's do this. I just thought of this. Let me just show you this really quick. This is the past. So this is the assessment that I'm talking about. This is the website. It is phenomenal. It will give you everything that you need. It's completely free, completely research-based. It goes through, these are the different forms for progress monitoring that you can use. This is why I said make sure you take your QR code, because there's so much on this website. It gives you instructions on how to administer the past. It has appendix, it has downloads. There is, that's not the one I want. There's downloads with videos that will show you how to model a lesson, that models the lesson for you. Or teachers could actually do, put on their whiteboard the lesson being done, so that they can have the lesson could be on the whiteboard, they can be doing it, and then they could be going around and helping the individual students. So this is a phenomenal resource. I highly encourage everybody to click on this code and look into it. The next thing that we use, once we get the results from the past and we see where the student is having challenges with phonemic awareness and with phonological awareness, then the curriculum that we use at the center is the Heggerty Phonemic Awareness Curriculum. It's research-based. It has progress monitoring and post-test. And the one thing that's great for teachers and for parents at home who are working on this, it is detailed lesson plans. So it'll say on Monday, you need to do work on rhyming, and then it actually gives you the words. It's a terrific program. It's easy to use, and it has a very systematic scope and sequence. It has explicit modeling. It has everything that we talk about for being just really good teaching. And I know I'm going through these really fast. It's just because I know Kristen's already talked about phonemic awareness. And so I just wanted to make sure that I got this in. Another thing that we use besides the Heggerty program is we do use a lot of the Elkonin boxes. I wonder, they're phenomenal. They're easy to do at home. So parents at home, if your child is having issues with phonemic awareness, then I highly suggest the Elkonin boxes. They help students build the phonological awareness by segmenting the words into sounds and that they could see it. So it's that multi-sensory piece that so many struggling readers and dyslexics need, is that they have that where they can see the chip moving and they can hear it. And I'll show you, I think, let's see if I brought it, if I have it. I think I don't have it. Sorry, I was going to show it to you guys, but I'm not quite sure I have it. So maybe at the end, if you want to see it, I'll definitely show you some examples of using Elkonin boxes. So this is the basis. This is where we kind of move into that piece of multisensory. So multisensory has been proven, right, to be the best gold standard for teaching anybody how to read, but most importantly, teaching struggling readers and readers with dyslexia. And so basically what we do when we get a student and we're teaching them either the sounds in words or actually teaching them how to decode words, we always follow the same multisensory method. So I'm just going to practice it really quick. We're going to see it again and again later in the presentation. But so we can do, let's see, we're going to start with phonemic awareness. So I would tell a student, say the word dog. And the student repeats it back to me, says dog. I want to make sure that he heard the same word that I said. Then what happens is we're going to stretch that out. Some curriculum have it where you stretch out a slinky, which just turns into a behavior problem. So I don't do that. We just stretch out with our finger, or we stretch out like this, and we're going to say dog, so that the student can hear, get ready to hear the individual sounds. That one sound, right, dog, because it sounds like one sound to a dyslexic, is actually 3 sounds. Then we're going to map it on our fingers, d, a, g. And then if we have the Elkonin chips and we're doing the sounds, we're going to pull down the tiles. And if we don't and we have letters, then we're going to pull out the letters. Then we're going to slowly check what we've done, and then we're going to blend it together. And so we're going to be doing that later. I'm going to be showing that later, but I wanted to get that method out there to get it in your brain. So now we're moving into decoding. So we've left phonological awareness behind. We know it's extremely important. We're still working on that with our students because they need it. And we're also now adding decoding, which is the alphabetic principle and a sound spelling correspondence. I'm going to catch up on my notes just so I don't miss anything. Okay, so Dr. Erie has a theory out there, which everybody follows. It's like a framework, and it's called Erie's Phases of Word Reading. And what we do once we get the student into our center is we find out about where they're at with phonemic awareness and phonological awareness. We've assessed them, and we've also checked to see started a program with them. The next thing we do is we use the core phonics to find out where they're at in Erie's phases of word reading. So the phases overlap each other, so it's not actually stages. It's not like the ages and stages where at 6 months you're sit up and at 1 year you walk, right? Developmentally, we don't do that. And we don't do that in reading either. So the phases do overlap, but as a teacher, we use these phrases as a framework for introducing the different teaching strategies and the intervention. You can create whole group lessons and small group lessons. So what I used to do when I was in the classroom is I'd assess my students to see where they were at on Erie's phases of word reading. And then I would do mini groups of where if they were, I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we move on. So for example, the first phase is the pre-alphabetic phase. And so if I had students that were still in the pre-alphabetic phase, then that would be my little group that I would bring up to my jelly bean table, my small group, and I would focus on the things that they need to get them through the pre-alphabetic phase. Because as students who are struggling or students with dyslexia, it's our job to do the intervention in a multisensory way to move them through Erie's phases. Erie's, this first pre-alphabetic phase, everybody knows about it. It's our pre-K kids or even younger. They're driving in the car, they see a big red ball and they say, Target, right? Or the gold arches, McDonald's. So they're using pictures to guess at words. And this phase is really interesting because it's in pre-K and they move through this phase in early kindergarten. So we want to see them in the beginning of kindergarten already moving out of this phase into the next phase. And then I also put down some instructional focus. When they're in this phase, you're going to be doing your phonological awareness and your grapheme letter correspondence. If we look here, there's a QR code. I love these things, you guys. I think they're so much fun. This will take you to the Florida Center for Reading Research. I'm from Florida, so a lot of my resources are from Florida. They're doing some phenomenal things there at the universities. And so I will just take you there really quick. Here we go. So at the Florida Center for Reading Research, we can click on activities, student center activities. We can click on pre-kindergarten, or we can click on kindergarten since we're in the pre-alphabetic and we've got some kindergartners that haven't moved through that yet, that phase yet. And this will tell you everything that you need. You're like, as a teacher, what do I do? What kind of programs do I use? Well, this right here is phonological awareness. You can open up any one of these and it gives you, oh, there's an email from Robin. And it disappears. You open it up and it disappears. There we go. It gives you the objective that you want to teach your students. It gives you the materials that you're going to need. and it tells you what activity to do. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Teaches you, if you're a parent at home, you can pull these up, you can print them out, or nowadays you could just have them up on your screen. And not that I promote more screen time for our students, but for your children. But it gives you kind of a framework of the different activities if your child is, or your student is in this ERIES phase. Moving on. The next phase is called the partial alphabetic phase. So we've moved them through instruction. We've moved our students through the early phase. Now we're at the partial alphabetic phase. This is where the student is beginning to use the letter sound correspondence. It may look at the first letter like a P and go puppy, that word means puppy. Really, it was something else, but you know, P means puppy at that age. Typically, they're in this stage, and we want to move them through the stage in mid to late kindergarten. And so our instructional focus is going to be letter sound knowledge, phonemic awareness. We're going to support the student to look at each phoneme in a CVC. So the big in here in this phase, they're looking at that first letter and they're guessing. They see D and they know that's dog, when actually it was dig, something like that. So we're going to really support them in looking at each one of those letters. And I'm going to show you how to do that later in the slideshow. It's the same thing. We could go back through for partial alphabetic. You can go back to the Florida Center for Reading Resource. They have all sorts of resources that you can print out. It's grouped in exactly what phase it's supposed to be in, so you can't make a mistake, and they're easy to use. The next phase is the full alphabetic phase. So back here, when I have a child in mid to late kindergarten, and they're moving through this phase, and then I move over, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to be moving over to this full alphabetic phase, because that's the next phase, right, in ERIES theory. They have letter sound correspondence. They've got strong phonemic awareness, or they have phonemic awareness and we're still working on it. They know to decode from left to right. They know that they're looking at each word and each letter and sounding that out. They're using those sounding out decoding strategies to look to sound out words that they've never seen before. So this typically develops in kindergarten and early first grade. If I have a student that's in first grade and they're back here at the partial alphabetic phase, red flag. That's a red flag. Especially if they've been having instruction, if they've been in the classroom and they've been having instruction. So it's very easy to tell students as early as kindergarten whether or not they've got their phonemic awareness and whether or not they've moved from the pre-alphabetic phase through the partial alphabetic phase and on into the full alphabetic phase by the end of kindergarten and in the middle of first grade. So keep that in mind, the teachers out there, that if you have a student that's a couple of phases back, it's a red flag, and a conversation with perhaps the special ed teacher in campus. So for this, I think I moved in here. This I used a little bit different. For ERIES phases of word reading, there's another resource that I like to use. It's the University of Florida Literacy Institute. They also do some fabulous work. Oh, look, my QR code is backwards. Oops, sorry about that. They do wonderful work. This will support during this phase, the instructional focus is segmenting and blending phonemes, attending to every grapheme individually, and repeated exposure to words and connected text. And please, please have it be decodable. That leveled readers is not good for our struggling readers. It must be decodable text. The challenge that you face here is you will have students, and I have 2 dyslexic boys, but I have friends whose children just picked up a book and they just started reading, right? I don't know what that is like because both of mine didn't do that. But they might need once, twice, 3 times, maybe a typical reader to get this going. A dyslexic reader is going to need many, 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 many more exposures. So make sure that you provide that opportunity at home or in the classroom where they're getting that extra intervention and that extra exposure with your scaffolding and your support. So we can take a look at, this is the UF Literacy Institute. They're also phenomenal. They actually have a virtual teaching resource hub. I've used it not as extensively as other other resources, but they're pretty good, I will say. The great thing about this for teachers and for parents at home is if we're going to click into like decoding and encoding, and we'll click to word work. So what they have is they actually have free resources for you to use that you can click on and you can use to support that word work and blending board, or the word work that you're doing with your individual students and your small groups. It is so hard. Hats off to teachers. You are so busy and there is not enough time in the day, and your heart breaks at the end of every day that you didn't get to do what you really wanted to do. I know that because I've been there. And so what I love about this resource is it's all ready for us. All we have to do is follow the link and then just maybe create, we know what our student needs. And so we're going to be working on what our student needs, but they've taken a lot of the work out for us. Another thing that they have, let's see if it's at the bottom, is if you're unsure at home, if you're a parent or if you're a teacher, if you're anybody and you're not quite sure how to do it, they have instructional videos for you to be able to watch the video, and then you can work with your students, and then, or you could work with your child. Good luck with working with your own child. My 2 boys would not work with me, but there are kids out there that will do that. And so this will give you, you have the instruction, an instructional video, and you also have the free resource right here. So definitely check them out. And I can go back to this. And I don't know if you didn't have, if I am going too fast and you didn't get this QR code, go ahead and scan it now. They're a phenomenal resource. The next phase of Erie's phases of word reading that we're moving our students through is called the consolidated phase. And with the consolidated phase, they're finished with their letter by letter decoding. So they're no longer going sp, sh, sp, splash. They're not doing that anymore. They've moved out of that phase. And what they're doing is they're starting to see the patterns and the word families. And one of the most important things, I got to make sure I have my notes, is that we do not want to introduce those chunks and those patterns and word families. We don't want children to be memorizing the word families before they've gone through the full alphabetic phase. This full alphabetic phase has to be solid for them to move into, instructional wise, the consolidated phase. Otherwise, the only thing they're doing is memorizing, and we don't want them to do that. And if you have a struggling reader, they're super good, especially dyslexics who are smart, of memorizing and kind of flying under the radar. And so we want to make sure that we've done our due diligence and our progress monitoring, that they have these skills. And you could do that by the core phonics, and I could talk more about that at the end of the show, but you want to make sure that they have all those skills before you move into this consolidated phase. And we've got, in this phase, it usually begins in 2nd grade for typical readers. It is a big red flag for our struggling and our dyslexic readers. We don't really see this. And if we do, if you really paid attention, you would notice they were memorizing and guessing, and they're using those context clues of the pictures. My oldest son was just a whiz at that. Nobody could believe he didn't know how to read, because he was so good at memorizing and looking at pictures and making up the story. And so we really want to pay attention to our students that are in the consolidated phase and make sure that they've learned it, and they're using the chunks, the blends, the diagraphs, and the vowel teams, and they've recognized it with automaticity instead of just that memorizing. Instructional focus for the consolidated phase would be to provide a plethora of opportunity for reading connected text. Read, 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 read. They have got, once they've got these skills, and this is the typical readers, and then later on it will be, you know, the struggling readers. Once we get those skills in them, they've got to read the text. And that's always a challenge. I know teachers and parents with students and with children who, you know, have struggled to learn how to read, and they're just so exhausted and they're so tired. But having that opportunity for them to read that connected text is important. So if it's a lower level text, something that they can read independently, great. They need to be doing that. In the consolidated phase, we continue to be teaching about our syllable type. We start our syllable types and teach our syllable rules. So we've been touching on these, but this is where we're really going to hit home on them. We're also going to continue that scaffolding and supporting and providing just a little bit more. My students get so mad at me because I'm like, you did it. Okay, now let's just do a little more. And so but that's what we're going to do in the consolidated phase. This is second grade and on up.
Karyn, you got a couple questions in the chat.
Oh no, I'm gonna get confused. Okay, but don't let me go on and on. What's one of the questions?
Okay, one of them, they're real short because it's off of what you just said. What makes text connected?
Oh, great question. So a lot of times a connected text is a story, is reading, is words together. So a lot of times that we're teaching students like vowel teams, or we're teaching them words, we're just teaching them mat, scat, splash, right? And connected text is going to be where they're reading, I am Sam, I went splash. It's a story. So it's a little reader, a little book.
Okay, you're good. Keep going.
Where was I? Okay, so here we go. We're back to that multisensory method, which is so important for our struggling readers and for our dyslexics. But you know what? It's just a gold standard of teaching anybody reading. And I'm going to show you that. Oh, my dog's here. When we are teaching reading, and we're added those graphings to our phonemes, we're going to do the same thing. With my tutors, I'm absolutely, this is one thing that I will never ever give any leeway on, is we have to use a multisensory method. When we're teaching a word, we're going to stretch it out. We're going to map it on our sound, our fingers. So sh. Then we're going to pull down the tiles with the letters on them, and then we're going to slowly check. All of that is that multisensory piece. So I'm using my auditory, I'm using my tactile because I'm pulling down tiles, I'm moving my fingers. All of that is exactly what is the best way to teach a dyslexic or a struggling reader how to read. I might want to skip this one for now. I'm going to show you this when we get to the part where, you know, I'm going to show you the tiles, but this is word chains. I'm a fanatic. I have just went to a conference and it's re-upped my fanaticism about word chains. Kind of forgot about them a little bit. That's why I love going to conferences, because it kind of brings back the things that I knew but forgotten. It's an excellent activity. Teachers, you could use it in the morning for warm-up work or word work activity at your jelly bean table. It could be done whole group with your smartboard. It could be done small group activity. It's a must do for struggling readers. It's a must do. And what chains do is they're kind of chosen based on what the student needs. And I'll explain that when we get to where we're finally going. All right, so am I doing good on time? I feel like I'm talking really fast. One of the things that I also just learned at this conference is something that I loved. I created this myself, so sorry if it looks a little wonky, but moving the students from that phonemic awareness in the L. Conan boxes to where we're going to add in those graphings, the letters with the sounds. This is this double Elkonin box I love. So for example, if I said the word, I said to this student, this is where I'm finally going to show you how to do it with the multisensory method, frog. So Kim, come back on and you do this with me.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so Kim's going to be my student. So the word is frog. Can you say frog?
Frog.
So now we're going to map it out. We're going to blend it out. Ready? Stretch it out. Frog.
Frog.
Now we're going to do it on our fingers.
G.
And I'm going to stop right there. I just want you guys to know, did you see me doing it? I wasn't doing it because guess what? They are so smart. They're going to wait. They're going to wait for me to make the sound and then they're going to copy it really quick. So as the teacher, I'm doing nonverbal cues. I'm like, say the word.
Frog.
Stretch it out.
Frog. G.
Right. Then I'm going to have them pull it down and I'm going to do it for Kim. Sorry. Ooh, I'm going to do it for you, Kim. Okay. This is something that I learned. Hold on a second. This is going to be scary, but we have to leave. I really want to show you this. And apparently in slides, they do not allow you to manipulate. So I have to go out of my, I have to go out of the presentation. There we go. Okay, here we go. So for me to show you how to manipulate these in slides, I have to go out of the presentation mode. So then what I'm going to have the student do is they're going to pull down the sounds. With their finger. And your fingers are up, right?
Maybe. G.
Yeah. So what and then we're going to double check. Remember, we do that double check in that multisensory method. We go back and check. We're going to touch and say. Oh, let's go back.
G.
Then we're going to slowly blend.
Frog.
Was that the word you wanted to spell? Was that the word that you wanted to? That was right? Frog. Awesome. Then with the double Elkonin boxes, they get to do it this way as well. Isn't that great? So we're moving, it's that bridge from just completely phonemic awareness with just the sounds into matching with the graphings. And we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to touch and say, make sure we got it all right.
G.
And let's slowly blend it in a word.
Frog.
And sometimes I say fast like a word.
Frog.
Yeah. So I just got, saw this couple of weekends ago at a conference, and I am currently trying to build them and use them at the center because I think they're wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim, for being a student.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now this is where we're going to go, and I'm going to show you everything that I've been talking about. What we use at the center is called Wizmo. The reason why I use it is because it provides a platform. It's an online platform that hits all 10 reading and spelling activities that are aligned with the very best multisensory and OG literacy practices. They have already created workbooks, but those workbooks are also highly customizable. So I can create any type of OG multisensory lesson that I want for whatever my students need. It provides like a ready-made workbooks. I'll show this to you, but it allows me to do work on word work mats, syllabication, any of those skills that I think a student needs. And it's also easy to create that word chains, which I promised you guys that I would show you. So we're going to go into Wizmo. As soon as I figure out how to do it. And where did I put sorry, I thought I had a link. We'll go into it the old-fashioned way. All right. So for Wismo, I don't work for Wismo. I promise you, I really don't. But it is something that's the platform that I use online. And also, if I have a student sitting next to me, we could use this, or we could use Tiles. But what I was talking about with, it has these workbooks. They have over 1,000 different workbooks that are already created. Any type of multisensory lesson that I need for my student is here, and for teachers and parents. But that takes out so much legwork that I actually have time to actually teach instead of spending all my time trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And we'll start with the very simple one. It's this is the initial consonant blends. These are the 10 activities that I was talking about. I have a workbook tiles, and we're going to start there with the workbook tiles. So for here with the workbook tiles, it already has created words for me. I chose that I wanted to do the blends. And so it's already created the blends, the words for me. And I'll show you how you can customize it for different words. But here we go back to that multisensory method. If this is decoding, because I'm having the student read a word that's already written, we're going to look at the word and we're going to go b, sh. We're going to go back and we're going to slowly blend brush. If I have one of my students, a student that looks at this word and he says b, sh, I'm going to immediately go back. I'm going to point at this word, and I've already taught them. I should have explained earlier that, you know, we teach all of my nonverbal cues. I've been practice and practice so my students know what I'm asking, and they're going to see that this wasn't an that it was an and so they're going to have to tap out multisensory that upper, up. I'm doing it on my hand. Upper, So we're trying to get that U, that short sound, stuck in their brain instead of just picking any vowel out there. Move forward. It's still got my consonant BR that I wanted to work on with my student because that's the trouble that they were having. B, I, k. We're going to slowly blend brick. Now these are decoding here. So this is the decoding. So decoding means that they're sounding out words, right, to read. I also want to switch it up and I want them to encode. And encode is that spelling piece, because reading and decoding and encoding, so reading and spelling go hand in hand and they support each other. So the more that we can get them to do it together, the more it gets into their brain, into that word memory form brain, and where they get to keep it in there and it's going to stick. So I might ask them, can you spell the word, let's spell the word flag. So they're going to do this, flag, g. And then we're going to bring it down. And when we bring it down, we're going to hear it again. G. And we're going to touch and say, make sure it's what we wanted to spell. G. And we're going to slowly blend flag, maybe fast like a word, flag, right? So now I'm going to talk to you about word chaining. So word chains are that, if you remember back in our phonemic awareness, we had where we were able to add one of the top criteria, one of the more complex skills was creating, adding, deleting, and switching up and manipulating and substituting phonemes. So we're going to do that now. We did that with just sounds. We practiced that with our Heggerty. Now we're going to do it with our graphings, with our letters. So we're going to start out, and I would do probably, I have to tell you, I wrote it down just in case I got nervous and I couldn't remember. I'm going to start with the word chain, and it's going to be at. So I'm going to ask the student, it's going to say at. I'm going to pull it down, at. So the very first word in the word chain is going to be with that multisensory method, at. Then now I'm going to ask them, change that to cat. And they're gonna have to go through and they're gonna have to go. At. I always have them double check. Cat. Change cat to cot. And then they have their brains thinking, right? They're working with those phonemes, they're working with those sounds and the graphemes, and they're switching it out. Oh, I need a ah. Double check. Ot. Cot. Change cot to hot. And it just goes, it builds on and on and on. When they get, when they've gotten the CBC letters down, the CBC words for the word chain down, I like to add to it. So we could even start with, I'll just build it really quick. Let's do lash, like an eyelash, right? Oh, that reminds me, I wanted to tell you guys something. So if I ask the student to say, bring down lash, they're gonna go sh. This is one finger representing the digraph sh, because it's two letters, but it only makes one sound. So it's gonna be one finger representing it in that multisensory method. If I were going to bring down brick, it would be b-er. And that's because it's a consonant blend. They go, when we say brick, it's really fast, right? Brr, but it's two different consonants and we hear the different sounds. So that's the consonant blend, whereas a digraph is two letters that is only making one sound. So I'm gonna go back to lash, sh. Now I'm gonna start my word chain here. I'm gonna say change lash to, and it could be a nonsense word, lish. Ish. Change lish to plish. So we're going to add, now we have four sounds represented ish by four graphemes. And then I'm going to add to it, change plish to plash. And now let's end it with change plash to splash. Splash. What do we need? What's that first sound you hear? Splash. 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 So that's word chaining. The only rules I will tell you in the world of reading, even though it's the most researched thing out there for all learning disabilities, is they're still arguing over rules and what we can and can't do. The fast rule that I hold is that I only introduce one chain. I only change out one grapheme and one sound at a time. I don't ever change out two. I wouldn't go from splash to lash, because then I'm removing two sounds. We'll go back to our presentation. Actually, no, let's go back to this. With the workbook tiles, I'm gonna move into something else. I'll do this one. So with this program and with other programs, you can create, you can move all the way up into, I'm gonna do syllable, you know what? Let's keep this until I do syllable types. Okay. So if I were to add a workbook, let's say I wanted to add consonant digraphs with fudge, I can go ahead and I could edit it. So for teachers, this is incredible. So you can do whatever you want to do and edit. I really want to teach these students the DGE, j, that these three letters say j, but I also want to teach them, they're at my group that I have right now is at 2 syllables. They're reading multi-syllables. Yep, I've introduced all these sounds, so that should be okay. Let's see if it can search for words. And then it will give you all of these words. You can use these words for your word chain, right? Their list is right here. So anyways, let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so that's what I've done. That's what we use in the center. We use Wismo right now. It's been a great online program. When we're in in class when we're only online right now, but we also have wooden tiles that we do the same exact thing that I just taught you with the same multisensory method, but we'll do it with wooden tiles. We have iPads where we'll do the tile, they'll pull down the tiles. We have a whiteboard, they can pull down on the whiteboard. But it just provides, it takes that for teachers, this WSMO, and also at the International or University of Florida Literacy Institute, they have all of these workbooks and word mats ready and built for you. So you don't have to worry about taking the time to build all this stuff. It's all there for you. So how am I doing on time? Okay. Moving into syllables. So we've talked a lot about these introducing the smaller words, right? And now we're going to talk a little bit about syllables. And first, before we move into multi-syllables or more than one syllable, we're just going to find out what a syllable is. And so a syllable is a word or part of a word. So for example, lash is a one-syllable word. It's got one vowel in it and I could hear in it. Or we have words that are created with two syllables or are part of a syllable. Syllables provide students that strategy that they need to be able to look at those longer words, the words that are made up of different syllables, and to figure out where one syllable ends and the next one begins. And that's how they chunk a larger word into manageable syllables types. A syllable is so important because it tells us what the vowel is saying. Vowels can say all sorts of things. A could say ah, it could say a, it could say it could say all sorts of things. So knowing our syllables and our syllable types, that helps us determine what the vowel is going to say. We count our syllables. I like to do it under the chin. So for example, if I were going to say the word octopus, if you go like this and you say octopus, my chin dropped 3 times. And so just by hearing it, when my chin dropped, I was saying a vowel. So I know that there's 3 vowels. Other programs, I'm not really into them. They do arm tapping, octopus. I don't know why, but some programs even tap on the head. But if you've got 2nd grade boys tapping on their head, behavior management problems like you wouldn't believe. So I would just stick with this, octopus. And that's going to tell you how you're going to do how many syllables. Syllables, again, super important. It tells us what the vowel says. Sorry, it's a little blurry. So we have 6 syllables. Some people say 7, but I don't believe that. It is 6. So talking about syllables, these 6 syllable types, there are 650,000 words, I believe, and adding, because we have a living language, right? English is a living language. We add more words like Zoom Meet and mask or COVID. All out of those 650,000 words, they are made up of 6 different syllable types, plus affixes, you know, the ings and the eds and the uns and the prefixes and the suffixes and some units. But a combination of these 6 different syllable types together create all of those words. So our syllable types, we have the closed syllable, which is the sat, flat, branch, and splash. I know it's a closed syllable because it's got one vowel, and that vowel is not at the end. So that vowel has to say its short sound. We should probably go back. The reason why I love syllable types so much is because if I look at this word and I've been taught that it's a closed syllable and that vowel has to say ah, I am not going to go branch. Oh, that's not a word. I'm going to be flexible. Branch. Oh, branch. I know what a branch is. That's going to impact so much their fluency And we know when fluency is impacted, then their comprehension is impacted. So teaching syllable types, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, is super important because it takes away that guesswork. And we know I see one vowel, it's not at the end of the word, it's gonna say ah, it's short sound. We also know research has said that with the closed syllables and with the open syllables, they make up 70%. 75% of our English words. So we're definitely going to want to teach closed and open for sure. Open syllables are when we have the vowels at the end, the door's open, they can run out the door and yell their name. So this is B-E, this is W-E, right? And open syllables also occur in words. So for example, Friday, this is the first syllable in the word Friday. It's open. And the I is getting to say its name. The vowel consonant E is a syllable type. Everybody knows it. It's where the E jumps and makes the vowel say its name. It is truly introduced way too early in many of our curriculum. And so now every time when kids are spelling, if this is introduced too early and they're going to spell, they will throw an E on the end of anything. Because they know words come with E's on the end. I usually at the center, we just work on closed and open until we've got those two syllables down pat. And then we'll start introducing the other words. Our controlled and the vowel team, I have to move our pictures, and the consonant LE pickle. I love the pickle words. They're so much fun. It's a stable ending. So consonant LE I teach my students is only going to come at the end. So I teach these early as well. And that's our bull, our cull, our dull, our pull. They're super helpful. So these are our 6 syllables types. So let's see. The next thing, so we have our 6 syllable types, right? And it's easy if it's a 1 syllable word. So let's go back to, I wish I knew where all my links were. Oop, I did that wrong. So when we're teaching our 1 syllable words, we're going to close out the entire thing. Oh, hang on with me, guys. Let's just go to Wismo. And then we'll also open up the presentation again. So when we have our 1 syllable words, it's not easy to teach, but moving on into 2 syllable words, we have to first make sure that our students understand what a syllable is before we teach them multisyllabic words and the bigger words. And then we're going to teach them syllable division rules. And that's why I wanted to pull this up, because this is much easier to show you than me just explaining it. So there's yet again more controversy, right? So syllable division is where we teach students, when we're looking at a longer word, what the rules are for breaking it up into smaller words. Right now, the research is saying that only really teaching the division between a couple of different syllable words types is the best. I actually at Coopalo Learning Center and a lot of my Orton Gillingham practitioners, and they're going to be teaching more than just 1 or 2 syllable division rules. They're going to be teaching them all. And here's why. Because some students love it and they want more. And some students are like, that's too overwhelming. So I really look and individualize how many syllable division rules that I'm going to teach. Depends on the student. So one of the rules that we know for a fact, and it does work really well, is that we're going to always divide a compound word into its 2 smaller parts. So if we come across a word, if a student comes across a word, multisyllabic word, we teach them to look for that smaller word part. The second thing that I always teach is the rabbit words. We call them rabbit words. And what we do is we locate the vowels. And if there are two consonants between those vowels, we're going to divide them down the middle. And that's the rabbit words. We also teach the syllable division rule that if there's only one consonant, that consonant usually will move to the second syllable. And we're going to practice all of these in Wizmo. If I can keep moving down. Then the last syllable type that I teach is that consonant LE. It's a stable syllable. It's always coming at the end. So I think it's a great syllable to teach. And then they're only having to worry about this first one. So what I teach is if you see an E at the end, we're going to go a consonant LE at the end. Excuse me. If you see a consonant LE at the end, we're going to count back 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's going to be a syllable. So now the student is only reading pick and coal. So we're going to go practice this in Wizmo. There's my link, everybody. It worked. And this is one of the first syllable types. It's not the compound word, but it's where we have two consonants. So what we teach to make it more multisensory is they get to grab a color and you're going to find your vowels. So I have one vowel here and one vowel here, and I'm going to count how many consonants are in between those vowels. If there's 2, I'm going to split them down the middle. So now the student is only reading this syllable. It's a closed syllable because look, where's the vowel? It's not at the end. It's closed in, so it has to say its short sound. Ah. That actually says all. That's a pretty bad one to go with. Moving on. Let's do this one. So it says ah for af, and then we're reading tur. This actually has that bossy R. A lot of my students will just go like this. And they'll go tur. And then I always remind them, oh, what did we learn? Remember in the slide, we learned every syllable has to have a vowel. And so then that's when they'll move and they'll think, oh yeah, that's right. We usually say at the end, We can trash that and go on. This next one, let's see. I'll just do this really quick. It's got one vowel here. It's got one vowel here, and it has one vowel here. Oh my God. I'm looking at this. It has 3 vowels. It must be a 3-syllable word. But a syllable, an E at the end, to be a vowel to be a syllable, it has to say something. So this is actually not its own syllable. So I've got two vowels here. I have one consonant in the middle. I'm going to divide it because that's our rule division number 3, where if we have one consonant, that consonant usually goes to the second syllable. And now I have an open E, B, and then this has got a stinky, because I picked this workbook, it's got ah in it, so it's because. So let's see if we could find another good word. System. I like to use a lot of words. I use words that they know, but it's also good to use words that are above their level or that they might not know, because I don't want them to guess at the word, and I want them to have to use their strategies that I've taught them. So we've got one vowel here, one vowel here. If I see a word with 2 vowels, I know it's a 2-syllable word. I'm going to count in between and I'm going to divide. System. So that's actually a pretty high workbook. I wouldn't have done that with the student, but we can go back to our presentation. Another thing that we do after I've done all of that multisensory work with the tiles, I can also show you this. We also do this in this program. We also go through flashcards. It can help them. It could divide it into syllables. It could divide it into these are my vowels. Oh, I see my vowels, they're yellow, and there's only 2. So this program, it has everything that you're going to need to be able to work with students. And then after we've done that multisensory piece, let's see if I can find this one. Probably not. We're going to work with worksheets. I know I said worksheets, but it's that independent practice. After they've been instructed on syllables and syllable division, you're going to want to give them that practice, independent practice, while you're there supporting it. And I was so very lucky to do some learning from Ron Yoshimoto. He's a fellow at, well, he's from Asset Schools in Hawaii, but he's also a fellow, an OG fellow. And what I teach my students, just go down, is we're going to work with some words. We're going to practice with our nonsense words. This is the CVC. So we're going to mark our vowels. We're going to jump. And we know that says bine. That says loan. Ope. Live. So this is just another resource, and I could share it with you. It's only done after a lot of multisensory, direct, systematic instruction, either with parent or homeschool teacher or with the teacher at school, before I allow students to work on this, or I'll work on it with them. Not a surprise, a lot of them don't like it. And I know I went really fast. I was watching my time, and plus I couldn't access my notes. So sorry if it was a little confusing, but I'm here to answer any questions. These are the resources that I use to create this webinar. It's everybody here I absolutely love Dyslexic Advantage. They're kind of shifting the paradigm thought about dyslexia being a disability and more of what the hidden potential with the dyslexia brain. Louisa Moats, that experts in perspectives on intervention of reading, that's been around since 2012, and I still pull it out and look at it. And then here's Dr. David Kilpatrick's The Essentials of Assessing and Preventing and Overcoming Reading Difficulties. If you're a teacher, I highly recommend, and you have students who are dyslexic, or students who are struggling in decoding, which means they're dyslexic, go ahead and I would highly recommend you get these books. So that's it. I know I kind of ended on a, but I wanted to leave time for questions. I might have skipped stuff because I wasn't looking at my notes at all, sorry. And so if there's questions and you need me to go back and show you something, I wanted to leave time for that. Or you can all go and have a margarita. I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a family behind me, so if you hear background noise, I apologize. That was awesome. Wonderful resources. That was super exciting. The QR code, and it took you right to all those. That was quite fancy.
I love those QR codes, right? Well, I think, and the reason why I wanted to do this, because I've been a classroom teacher for many years, and I go to conferences and I go to workshops, and I get told the same thing over and over and over again. And just do this, do this, do that, and then nothing. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. I don't have 48 hours in one day to go out and do this. Right. So I really like to provide those intervention, those resources. And then with what the Florida, University of Florida is doing with the videos out now, so that you can look at those videos and make sure that you're doing it correctly, is, I think, a game changer.
Just great resources, and new to, I know it's certainly new to me, and just a lot of resources out there that I wasn't familiar with. We did have a couple of questions. Wismo, that's a new resource I hadn't heard of. Is that a free resource?
It is not, but it is super cheap. I think that I get a year subscription for, well, it could have been because of COVID. It might be $49 or $79. So you could even talk with your school and see if they can purchase it for you. To provide that ability to be able to create those really quick Orton Gillingham multisensory lessons is just, I would fight for it. I know also on the University of Florida Literacy Institute, that was a QR code. They have a lot of resources that are free. So I just I didn't use them as much because I'm so used to Wismo. I wanted to make sure I gave a good presentation. But they also have some really good resources, and those are free. So definitely check those out.
Yeah, and I really appreciated you sharing in the beginning that screener.
Oh, yeah.
I have it because I QR coded it, but the past test.
Essential. So a lot of our dyslexics, this is phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, that's where they have the big, huge deficit. And so being able to take that test, give that baseline assessment, and then having the ability to do that progress monitoring to make sure that your instruction is actually working. Because what I do is we give the baseline assessment, we give instruction, and if we get to that first progress monitoring and we have seen no change, then I've done something wrong. I haven't chosen the right curriculum. I haven't done it multisensory enough. And so it's not a whole year goes by and I go, why isn't he doing? I don't understand. I've been doing it. So that progress monitoring piece is so super important, because it's basically the data will drive your instruction and what you're going to be doing with your students.
Okay, just excellent. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to just encourage anybody to unmute themselves. If you have any questions, we can maybe take just a couple minutes since it's such a small group of us here tonight.
And I did go really fast. I'm so sorry. And I was without notes. So there's probably stuff that I missed out on. So if you have questions about the multisensory method or introducing small or big words, you know, or what they need to know before you introduce multisensory words, just ask away, because I'm not sure if I actually explained it well enough. Nobody.
The Florida Center for Reading Research.
Yes.
I discovered them, and my kids that I work with like their games.
Yes. Right. Do you create the games?
I print theirs out and cut them up and sit on the floor with the kids and play them.
Right? They're great. All of the resources are research-based. It's what works. There's nothing that I talked about tonight doesn't not work. I mean, some students need more, some students need less, but generally it works. The Florida Center for Reading Research is great. Were you on when I was talking about it? Is a long time ago. Both my boys are dyslexic, so we participated in one of their what they did was a DNA test, and they wanted to see if dyslexia was hereditary. And so we all swabbed our inside of our mouth and sent off our tubes with our swab in it, and never heard back. But it was interesting being a part of their center, but being part of their research. Yeah, so they do really good work, and the University of Florida does excellent work as well. So. And I'm from Florida, I know about it. So if you have resources on the West Coast, feel free to shoot them my way. I'd love to get more resources in.
And Karyn, did you share in your slideshow here anywhere about how families or educators might reach you at Coopalo?
Oh, yes, I am available. Did you get my QR code, people?
Oh gosh, yes.
I mean, come on. Yeah, I'm always available for if you have any questions. I love Decoding Dyslexia. I want to thank you for inviting me on to share what I know. I just think what you do is really good work. We need more of you guys, more parents. So thank you for the parents that are here. I know it's hard. I've been there. I have 2 dyslexics. I was the special ed teacher on campus when my kid could not read. It was awful. And so what you're going through, I understand. And so if you have any questions about it, I also do advocacy work. That's been a huge part with this COVID going on and going into the schools and with IEPs. I just had one this morning in Nampa. And so if you need help with that, I'm always available as well.
Wonderful. We do need help with advocacy. So we're planning to do maybe a little dyslexia advocate panel, if you will, kind of preparing back to school, preparing parents for So that's one of our workshops we're kind of putting together now, brainstorming ideas. So I will be reaching out, Karyn, and see if you
What is Dyslexia Institute, the train down in San Diego. We should tap into
yeah.
them, Robin. Yes, I have. We should tap into them. They would be great.
Yeah, I took their course, and that's when I realized that, yeah, I'm not meant to work with children. It was so hard. I thought, oh dear, I think I know where my son got that. Anyhow, okay, I won't take up any more time. If there's any more questions, just one more second for anyone to unmute and ask.
Rose, you're not going to ask your question?
Rose.
Oh. So you mentioned a secret syllable type, and then you said, no, let's not talk about that. And it just made me more curious. What's the 7th type?
Oh, diphthongs.
Oh.
Yeah, so you know how I wonder if I could just make this big and I could just write it right. Let's practice our QR codes. So a lot of people, that 7th, and I don't know why they do it. I think it's super confusing for our students, but we have the vowel teams, right? Those are ah, and then of course we have ah that's spelled differently, but we use it at the end instead of the middle. And then we have the diphthongs, and a diphthong is when your mouth doesn't close. So oi. So my lips did not touch each other, oi, to get to make that sound. That's called a diphthong. And for some reason, they're calling that a separate syllable type. And I just think it confuses students, children, because AU is AW are vowel teams. And so is OI. Those are 2 vowels. Let's just lump them all together and call it a vowel team instead of having them to think about this whole other syllable type that is meaningless for them. And I get a lot of, I think your son told me that too. W is not a vowel, Karyn. Like, well, when it's with an A, it is. So yeah, I always, this is a vowel team. When W is with the A in a team, it is considered a vowel team. So it's those
Okay.
Yeah, that's the secret syllable type.
All right. I won't say that I understood that, but I do have another question. So I'm wondering, like, multisensory instruction is very important, but it seems like there's a lot you could do that's multisensory that's not like actually helpful, right? Like you could, maybe it is helpful. Maybe just anything multisensory is helpful, or are there like specific things that contribute to the instruction?
Well, that's a good question. And I will tell you, having spent many, many dollars on many different programs, for example, Linda Mood Bell, and I'm not putting any program down, but Linda Mood Bell does a lot of air writing where they write in the air and they visualize. And so that's multisensory, the writing in the air, and it has yet to work for any of my students. So is that what you mean? Is that?
Yeah. So is it just trial and error, or are there like patterns? Like,
I think that I like to do where it's tactile for me. So if we're touching the tile, moving it down, remember, if we're sitting next to them and I actually have the wooden tiles, they could hear the tile, they're moving the tile, they hear the like that. That to me seems the best multisensory mode is that and this. Whereas it's because it's in the air, they're just going like this and it's not really doing anything. I think they have to be touching, for me, in my opinion. It's the tactile piece that is super important.
Awesome, thanks.
Notice how I said in my opinion. It's because I don't want to anger. Everybody gets very hot-headed over this stuff, right? There's programs that you have to do this and you can't teach that. And it just literally, I'm glad that we talked about this because it's not the program, it's the student. If the student works well with air writing, then I will air write up a storm. If the student works good with not knowing the syllable types because it's too much, then I'm going to find something else. It's having that deep understanding of that multisensory method and how the phases of the phases that they go through, so that I can pull out from my toolbox and say, this is going to work with this student, and then checking and making sure it does. Because if it doesn't, it's on me and I need to change.
I appreciate you sharing that because I think even in my own journey, I was so focused on what program, what method. And I think what I've learned is there isn't one.
Right.
There isn't one. So it's about finding someone that your child connects with and feels safe with, and therefore is open to learn from. And then secondly, that person hopefully has just this enormous toolbox, as you said, to pull out whatever might be needed for
Right.
him on any given day. Because I know for my son, each day even is a little different as
And
far
that-
as what he comes to the session
Right.
able to take in. So
Yeah. It's hard. You know, it's truly hard. And I was right with you. My oldest son, who's severely dyslexic, he's 22 now. But when he was in second and third grade, we used, not me, because he wouldn't listen to me, the Barton program. And I used the Barton program and it worked with him. It was a really good fit. And I was Barton. And it's a good program. But guess what? It was the tutor. Lori Friedelin. We still talk about Lori. It was Lori and the right program. It was both of them together. And
right.
that's that. So I've been there with you. I was, all
Yeah.
Bart did it. But really that's why I started going out and getting that other training from Wilson. And
Right. And so when teachers will even ask, what should I ask the school to buy? What training should I go to? And it's just like, oh, well, there isn't just one. And each of your kiddos that you're going to be supporting are going to have different needs. And so it's really just about being an educator that's a life learner, looking to always learn, like you, Karyn. You always are going to conferences and you're learning and growing and getting reminded of maybe what training you took even a decade ago. And it's just an educator who is a life learner and is willing to.
And it's hard because a lot of the programs, the curriculums, they can't be done in the classroom. They can't be done. That's why I really tried to center this around what I'm teaching is now coming out in the gen ed curriculums. The really great reading program. They're starting to get this multisensory piece in. And so I think that if the teacher wants to know where she should get training or he should get training, I like the IMSLEC. Did I say that right, you guys? The multisensory.
Yeah, Institute of Multisensory Education.
So that will add to their understanding of turning things into anything into being multisensory.
Right.
That's what I suggest. But thank you so much, everybody, for listening to me go like this for so long. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out. I am available.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Karyn,
Thank you, Karyn.
before you go, the Earl's phases, is there a book on that or resource?
There is a lot of so she's a researcher, so a lot of her explanations of it, if you're going to go straight to the source, are super, super dry. So other researchers who are more educators, like at the university level, have taken taken her work and kind of couched it into more terms for teachers and parents. And I think I had it on here. Or at least I thought I did, that early, is this it? Right here. Did you get this? No, that's the wrong one. That's Florida Center for Reading Research.
Right.
Look at the University of Florida, LI, the University of Florida Learning Institute. And that, the director there has done a lot of work with the phases. She has videos out on the phases, and she also has written some work on it that explains it a lot better than I can.
Okay.
Any questions? That's what I always do at the end of my thing. What did we think today? Was it a this, or a this? And then I always get like, that, Karyn.
I just wanted to comment that I